ODM. Tuanze tena. ODM. ODM. Mimi ni Senator Crystal Asige. Na wajua mimi si Sifuna SG wetu. Sifuna huwa akisoma mbele yenu anasema kama mnaniona eka mikono juu, kama mnaniona eka mkono juu, eka mkono juu. Lakini mimi si unaona mimi sioni. Mimi ni VIP, visually impaired person. Sasa mimi ningependa kuigeuza kidogo tu niseme kama mnaniona pigeni nduru, kama mnaniona pigeni nduru, niwasikie, niwasikie, niwasikie. Thank you so much to the leadership of ODM for giving me this singular honor to address the Disability League of the ODM party this morning. Asanteni sana. I have a lot to report because this is my core group in the party and the reason why Baba nominated me to represent you. People with disabilities, youth, and also women in the Senate. There's something that Baba and I used to enjoy talking to each other about, a particular verse called Biblia. And it goes like this. There is a time for everything, and a season for everything under the heavens. A time to be born and a time to die. A time to plant and a time to uproot. A time to kill and a time to heal. A time to tear down and a time to build. A time to weep and a time to dance. What was planned to be a time to dance, a time to celebrate the 20-year anniversary of ODM this October, a party resolute in its vision, in its resilience, and its duty to its people, has in the blink of an eye and without warning, turned into an overwhelmingly inconsolable time of mourning. To our party leader's wife, Mama Ida, her children, Rosemary, Junior, and Winnie, his brother and our dear party leader, Senator Odinga, the party ODM, and the country at large, I pass profound and most heartfelt condolences on behalf of my family and on my own behalf. When the news of Baba's passing broke, it set me aback. I was sick to the back of my teeth, to be honest, imagining what Kenya will be like without him. Without his courage, his sacrifices, and his relentless belief in the power of the people. To this day, frankly, I still can't find the heart to refer to him as the late. From rushing to his current home on that Wednesday morning to condoling with his family in Bondo, I don't think any of us have really accepted what has happened as we process and continue to prepare for the party to move forward. It's impossible to picture our democracy, our freedoms, and even our constitution without the imprint of the Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga, a man of clarity and complexity in equal measure, but always a man of courageous conviction. As Kenya mourns a giant, I mourn my party leader, my political engineer, my friend, and a man whose vision helped to shape the fabric of this nation. And Baba was more than a statesman, as you all know. He was a movement, a man who dared to imagine a just, united, and inclusive Kenya, long before equality became part of our national lexicon. His courage, his resilience, and his lifelong commitment to reform and reconciliation have left a huge mark on the conscience of our country. Baba had always been kind to me. He had always been warm to me. Even when we differed in opinion or direction, he cared enough to listen and appreciate me for articulating my stand. Because in all honesty, Baba had a silent predilection for those with conviction. Never did he move to punish, to marginalize, or to dismiss me when I shared my genuine thoughts with him and they differed. And if for that alone, I deeply honor and respect him. Now that Baba has gone, we must not take advantage of the fact that he is not here. This is not the time nor an opportunity to inflate the truth about what he said or virtue signal, like I see many people in the country are doing. It's time as young people, as people with disabilities, to do something different. I will instead remember Baba for the times that we did share, which didn't make the news. Like how he would almost always want me to sit to the left of him in all meetings, or how he would sometimes forget I'm visually impaired. Alafu, he'll wave and say, Senator, and he expect me to see and wave back. Aki Baba, misioni. I would tell him. Or how we had a shared love for music, reggae, rumba, so much so that he used our song Extravaganza in what would sadly become his very last campaign for presidency in 2022. To me, Baba was not just a leader that I admired from up close. He was someone who saw something in me before anyone else did. He believed in my potential. He chose to entrust me with serving the great people of Kenya at the very highest level, and demonstrated to us that leadership is about creating leaders, not about manufacturing followers. Him and I had a shared belief that if service is beneath you, then leadership is beyond you. And you can see that he made leaders out of many of us. And in giving me a chance to be a leader remains one of the greatest honors of my life. His role in multipartism, political freedoms, democracy, devolution, and a new constitution is cemented in his legacy. And in times like these, it is possible to be lost in competing campaigns of populism, he said, and forget that leading means making decisions that will invite booing instead of cheers. I have been there, he said. I have been cheered and I have been booed, he said. He knew, of course he knew, that many of us had become ambivalent towards him. Some people were confused, disappointed at some decisions that we made, and even felt betrayed at times. But that is part of being a leader that he was. There is a time for everything. I want Kenyans to know that if things didn't happen the way that you want them, it'll happen in a better way than you'll imagine. That's the beauty of God's plan. And every time you remember what Baba did, celebrate him. Baba's heart belonged to the people, I believe that. He was a leader who listened, who cared, who stood with the oppressed, and who believed that inclusion is not charity, it's justice. Just as I believe. His life was proof that his ability is power, and courage is contagious. I had actually invited Baba to join my family and I and other members of ODM to witness the ascension of the Persons with Disabilities Act earlier this year in May in State House. But sadly, he couldn't make it for reasons out of my control. The PWD Act was not merely a personal milestone, ladies and gentlemen, but it was a continuation of our shared mission to make every Kenyan, regardless of circumstance, ability, or disability, have their rights seen, understood, and fiercely protected in this country. And as I reflect, I think that may have been our shared assignment, Baba and I, the pursuit of an inclusive Kenya. His life has demonstrated to me that part of being great is actually being great. And now, it is incredibly humbling to know that this struggle for persons with disabilities to be seen in our country started in 1959 with a man named John Kimuyu. You know him. A blind man who started this movement, giving me in 2025 a young determined blind woman the opportunity to contribute solutions, which has turned into the Persons with Disabilities Act of 2025, which was my honor to have sponsored. I've experienced firsthand the systemic gaps in our country, public buildings I couldn't access, and social attitudes that treated disability as an afterthought or a shame. You know this. And I also watched my parents carry the emotional and financial burden of healthcare, of my mobility, and of my education, so that they can provide for me as a young person with disability. So when I took my oath in the Senate in 2022, courtesy of Baba, my resolve was to turn that pain into policy. I wanted to draft something that didn't just have something that acknowledged our existence, but something that actively protected our rights, our independence, and our dignity as people with disabilities in Kenya. Now, this is a 64-page document with a lot to chew on. Najua umesoma. But let me just highlight some of them that we now will enjoy as people with disabilities, starting with the Disability League of ODM. Number 1, recognition of neurodiversity. For the first time, people with autism, people with CP, Down syndrome, and other forms of neurodiverse disabilities are explicitly recognized and protected under Kenyan law because of this act. There is a need as a country for us to put in place budgets, of course, to train community health providers, to train teachers and parents of neurodiverse people on early intervention and sustained care, so that this act can support them as much as it possibly can. Next, the 5% employment quota, which is in Section 4 of the Act. Both public and private institutions with 20 or more employees are now required to ensure that at least 5% of their workforce are people with disabilities. This means that if you have 20 employees, at least one must be a PWD. That's what the Act says. Many tend to believe that hiring people with disability is a burdensome thing, but it lowers productivity, which is a good debate to have. So global studies show that companies committed to disability inclusion see up to 30% higher revenue, double the net income, and even 72% more creativity compared to their peers who are not inclusive. That's a fact. 90% of HR managers actually report that employees with disabilities either meet or exceed workplace expectations and enjoy increased customer loyalty because customers now want to put their money where it most makes a difference. Imagine what our economy and society could gain if every Kenyan talent was included in the workforce. And I hope that this part of the Act will shift mindsets in the country. The proven benefits of employing us in the workplace. Now, next, let's go to housing in Section 77, which says this, and listen carefully, PWDs. Nataka msikie hii. Section 77. Every government agency putting up residential and commercial buildings shall reserve at least 5% of the said residential and commercial building for acquisition by persons with disability. And the terms and conditions of such acquisition to persons with disabilities shall include interest-free and longer periods of repayment. That's Section 77. So affordable housing units, wherever you see them, wherever they are built, 5% of them belong to us as people with disabilities. Wherever you see a soko being built, an open marketplace, a commercial public area, 5% of those stalls belong to people with disabilities now. So mkitembea hapa Kenya, make sure that you arm yourself with Section 77 of the PWD Act so you can ask those questions. Where is our allocation in these buildings? Next highlight, tax exemptions for persons with disabilities which is found under Section 56. That's always been there. Now, the next part, which is new, is let me look for the, yes. I argued this in Parliament, and our SG will bear me witness to this. There was an issue that we all face as PWDs, which is matters of reassessment, isn't it, for tax exemption? Yes? Sindio? You have to get reassessed every 5 years, so that you can prove you are still a PWD. I argued this in Parliament. Members will remember, where I told Mr. Speaker, have you ever heard of men having to be reassessed to ensure that they are still men so they can keep their rights? Mr. Speaker, have you ever heard women needing to be reassessed to make sure they're still women so that they can keep their rights? So then why is it that only PWDs have to undergo reassessment to ensure they are still disabled for us to keep our rights? And with that argument alone, I won over the House, and they agreed that that part needs to be repealed. And now, ladies and gentlemen, in the Disability League of ODM, we will no longer have to endure reassessments. So long as you have been assessed with a permanent disability, iyo mambo is of the past. Now let's move on to tax exemptions for caregivers and parents. That is new in this act. I've included in this law provisions to ease the burden on parents and caregivers who look after their loved ones with disabilities. As someone whose own parents sacrificed so much for me to get here, this felt necessary and long overdue. This one provision alone has caused nationwide and even international recognition, and has made parents and caregivers in Kenya finally feel seen and heard and supported in the struggles that they maneuver through every day. Parents and caregivers will now be eligible to apply for tax exemption, which regulations, I am informed, are currently being drafted by the Cabinet of Kenya. Another impactful provision that I've added in the Act is extending our retirement age from 60 to 65, which can be found in Section 21, yes. Now, many people with disabilities, you'll know, we enter the workforce late because of very complex barriers in education and other things, and I'm sure you've seen these cases and you've maybe experienced them across the country, where a 20-year-old with disability is still in primary school. Sindio? A 30-year-old is still in high school, or a person with disability only finding their first job in their 40s or 50s. And many a time, we will only be given very low-paying, tokenistic jobs because the belief that we cannot add much value to the workplace because of our disability. That still persists in Kenya. So now extending the retirement age gives us a fairer chance to build our careers, to grow modest savings, and to eventually retire with some dignity. That is now law in Kenya. This one is very close to me because of being a resident of Mombasa. Mombasa ni county yangu. A ban on exploitative begging in Section 68 of the Act. Section 68. I have found it impossible to believe that using PWDs to beg on our streets has never been deemed as a criminal offense before this law. Nevertheless, it's now an offense to cause, encourage, or solicit a child or adult with disability to beg or receive alms. Conviction carries a fine of up to 2 million shillings, imprisonment of up to 2 years, or to both if found convicted. Isn't that a great thing? We cannot be used to beg. The cartels, especially here on the coast specifically, have been taking advantage of us for far too long. And there's never been a law to criminalize them, but now it is in Section 68 of our PWD Act. Let's go to sports and recreation, which is in Section 29. Every person with disability now has the right to participate equally in sports, in recreation, in leisure, and cultural activities at all levels in the country. They're entitled to free access to public recreation and sports facilities, listen, support to develop our artistic potential, the right to recognition to identities, including sign language and deaf culture. All of that is all in the Act, and you can now enjoy. It says that private and public organizations and institutions are required to provide accessible environments, training facilities, resources, equipment, and transportation, and all infrastructure to ensure our full participation in these activities. Now, next, accessibility provisions. Whether it's a building, ladies and gentlemen, a workplace, a technology, or a public service vehicle, if it's not fully accessible to us with disabilities, there are now consequences according to this law. You can be fined or taken to court because rights without enforcement are just suggestions. And I wanted this act to have teeth. So now you can tell people who don't create ramps, lifts, accessible pathways, pavements, transportation, matatus, buses, anything that we use and enjoy must be made accessible according to this law, and it has punitive action from now on. Now, the truth is, digital services as well are a part of that. And they should unlock freedom, not reinforce exclusion. And now, with this new law, we have the moral responsibility and the legal power to make it a reality. So websites, as well as equipment in the office, at the bank, wherever you find digital equipment or technology, it also must be made accessible to us. So let's push for the implementation and pressure people to make accessibility a reality for us all. Please note that a person, it's also in the Act, is guilty of an offense if he or she fails to comply with any parts of this Act. Okay? They are guilty of an offense if they fail to comply to any parts of this Act. In short, the Act does not just update the 2003 law from the past. It also transforms how government, all institutions, and society at large responds to disability. Not with pity or charity anymore, but now it is with access, with equity, and with justice that we all deserve. Members of ODM Disability League, it's now time for us to push more than before. You now have the power to translate this law into your everyday life in every community in the country, and to ask tough questions with this PWD Act in your hands. Our organizations employing PWDs, ask them. Our public housing units and market stalls being allocated 5% to disabled communities, you have to ask them. Our ministries meeting their accessibility obligations, you have to ask them. Our government websites usable by everyone and services as well, no matter disability or ability. You must ask these questions. Are disability mainstreaming units actually reporting progress of inclusion in the country? We will need a serious army of champions to help get this PWD Act to every corner of Kenya, because we will not go far alone. My only ask is that you, members of the ODM Disability League, continue to support in this endeavor that Baba assigned me to begin. Will you support me? Will you support me to take this Disability Act to every corner of the country? Take it back to your constituencies, to your ward, to your communities, to your families, because this law should not just be something we look at and applaud. It should be a tool that should be applied. Tunaweza fanya? ODM? 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 Asante Baba. Now that I have completed this and delivered this law to the country, the next frontier for us is to push for a special census of persons with disabilities across Kenya. Mnanisikia? That is the next step, and that is what I want to persuade you to support me to realize. This has been an incredibly good year for disability. Well, now we have a disability policy in place, a disability act, a disability strategy. We have political buy-in, and best of all, we have you, a charged up disability movement, but we cannot stop at applaud. We cannot stop at applause. We must apply them, like I said, as tools. We no longer have reason to agonize. We must now organize. And I want to submit, we need to now push for a special census of persons with disabilities in Kenya. Why? Here are the facts. In 2019 census, we were counted at 916,692 people. This was a sharp decline from 2009, 10 years prior, where they counted us at 1,330,312 PWDs in the country, which, by the way, did not count children with disabilities under 5, because in 2009, they used something called Washington Questionnaire, and it only counted people above 5 years old. This means that Kenya has a disability prevalence rate of 2.2% apparently, in comparison to the 2009 prevalence rate of 3.5. So tumeshuka. Mnanisikia? We used to be 1.3 in 2009, and now we're 960,000. Does that sound right to you? Where are the 413,620 people with disabilities? Where have they gone in 10 years' time? Because that is a decline in over 400,000 PWDs. Why were they left out in the 2019 census? We have to ask these questions. Could a mass healing or a mass death of PWDs have taken place in 10 years? Mnajua? Have you heard of a mass death or anything like that? Tulienda wapi? Now, according to the World Health Organization, WHO, they estimate 15% of every country's population is PWDs. So why is the PWD prevalence rate far below every single country in the world? How? We are less than Britain, France, and practically every other nation in the world. Is it possible that we are just that special in Kenya? It's not possible. And if that thought is not annoying enough, it doesn't frustrate you, National Bureau of Statistics, why did they not stop to ask themselves, with our overall data showing an increase in Kenya's general population, how can the number of PWDs be decreasing? Is that possible? The population cannot grow and as PWDs are getting less. It's impossible. This notable contrast has been the bone of contention. See, you know this because you are part of the disability community. And it's caused us to ask, where are all these 413,620 people with disability magically going? Because as we know, census discrepancy are a suppression tool for disability inclusion. And it's no wonder that Treasury's budget in this financial year of 2025-26 report, this is why it has been slashed, our budget, by 47%, because they think that we're not here. They think we are still at 960,000. So our budget has decreased by almost 50%. members of ODM Disability League, there's no doubt in my mind that we absolutely must push to undertake this important data collection exercise, a special census. It would ultimately be the cornerstone to ensure efficient programming, planning, and strategy of disability-related rights in the PWD Act. That's the only way. Because people with disabilities, if we are not counted, then we do not count in this country. If we are not counted, we do not count. We have to push for it. We have to demand for it. We deserve it because we are more valuable than we know. Let me tell you, if WHO has estimated us at 15% of the population, it means that out of 55 or so million people in Kenya, approximately 8 million identify with some kind of disability. This is not a suggestion. This, my friends, is a strategy I'm giving you. Whoever will reach even half of 8 million people with disabilities will absolutely win the next election. Because we are a strong voter bloc, if we choose to be that. I strongly and sincerely believe that we, people with disabilities, ahead of 2027, are also the strongest voter bloc in the country because we best exemplify the diversity that Kenya embodies. And we also demonstrate the unity that Raila Amolo Odinga, along with all Kenyans, aspire to achieve in this country. The disability voter bloc is not about gender or geography. We're not about county or class. People with disabilities are more powerful than that because our bloc represents men, women, youth, orphans, the elderly, tribal balance, cultural diversity, and every other demographic and data set that politicians will desperately be looking for in the next 2 years. This is why I'm saying we must no longer agonize. We must organize. And it'll only take 1 billion shillings, I have done the research, to roll this special census out. And us as a party, we must push government to put their money where their mouth is. Will you help to push for a special disability census? Make government put money where their mouth is. It'll only take 1 billion shillings. Yo ni kidogo. So that we can be counted, not at county level, not at sub-county level, but down to every single ward. We must find these 8 million people with disabilities in the country so that we can also have a say in the direction of Kenya. Ladies and gentlemen of ODM Disability League, the work that I've been doing and the vision that I have for Kenya, I pray lays the foundation for an inclusive education and healthcare system, accessible cities, equitable employment, just court systems, and true independent living for people with disabilities. These are values and principles that are genuinely people-centered, which are also values and principles that I share deeply with my party leader, Raila Amolo Odinga. Do you share those values and principles? Do you too share them? Then let's do this together and finish the work that Baba so gallantly started. A Kenya that is inclusive of every single person in it. As I come to a close, I may not be able to fully express how thankful I am to all of you, to the Disability League, our chair, Nixon Kakiri, the entire leadership of ODM. You have been deeply affirming in supporting this work, especially those who are not even in this room, across the country, who have waited for 22 years for a law that truly represents them. It's been 22 years since we had a Disability Act. Of course, while the applause for this act has been very encouraging, what matters most now, like I said, is action. This is called an act for a reason. And implementation will be everything. We need to support each other. ODM, are you ready? Muko tayari? Because this act will not act without you acting. Mumesikia? Kuja mimi ni msanii, napenda maneno. This act will not act without you acting. We have done our part as members of ODM Disability League. We have delivered the PWD law to the country, and now we have to continue the race. We must continue the race that Baba left us to finish. Sindio, I want us to do better. I want us to be better. I want us to get better. I want us to have better in this country. That's the reason why I am here. And I will continue to be at your service and do anything in my power with that small time that I have left. Mkiniambia 2027 is the end of my assignment, pia nitarudi nyumbani. Na nitakaa, nina ng'ombe, ka ng'ombe moja. I can also just do that work. But if you want us to continue beyond 2027, then let's support each other. ODM? ODM. We are the ones who are going to save this country if we so choose to do so. We are powerful. Umesikia? I believe we are more powerful than we know. 8 million people with disabilities is not a joke. Nasi tafadhali. Sindio? Nasi? Thank you so much. I want to end it there. I appreciate all of your attention. And now, tufanye hiyo kazi. Asanteni sana. Hey, DJ anataka niimbe. Nasikia DJ anataka niimbe. Hey, what are we waiting for when